Planning laws affect all of our lives wherever we live. And it's the planners who have to police the countless rules and regulations, dealing with everything from applications...
And the new house there.
Keeping builders on the straight and narrow...
We've given them the weekend to do it, nothing's happened, we're taking action.
And getting tough when it all goes wrong.
We'll see you in court.
They'll help you get the building up, but if you don't have permission, they could make you knock it down. This week, time runs out for a dangerous building site.
That's bad. And unfortunately, we're going to have to get the stick out.
The hunt is on for an unlawful airport car park.
This is very much a cat and mouse game.
And a proposed development threatens to overshadow the neighbours.
We'll be really, imposing and we'll feel really hemmed in.
Councils have to keep a close eye on builders and developers, because getting planning permission is only one part of the story. Sticking to the plans and building safely can be a whole other matter. One end of Terrace House in Barnet, North London, is undergoing a dramatic transformation hidden beneath blue tarpaulin. Next door neighbour Ben is alarmed by what is going on over the fence.
If you look through here, you can see they've dug down about a metre under our foundations, exposing our foundations. So our house is basically resting on their house.
The developer has planning permission to extend this house and convert it into 4 flats. But getting this approval isn't the end of it. Before doing the work, he has to submit plans to building control to make sure the work is carried out properly, something this developer has failed to do.
This is the inside of the house, basically. It all looks rather crude. Wires and stuff hanging from the ceiling. And there's a pipe there. I don't know if it's been capped off or not. There was actually a situation where they could smell gas. Then he came over, looking for the gas leak, takes a lighter out of his pocket and starts waving it around looking for it.
Ben and his mum Jane live right next door to the blue tarpaulin house.
I heard something fall, and down on the floor where the dog sleeps was this chunk of cement and plaster.
They're knocking through the party wall, they're knocking under the foundations, they're banging this beam, one of our main beams, with the cracks and everything. And it's very scary that your first floor may fall down. And nobody so far has stopped him. Very upsetting, very frightening, because you think your home is safe. It's your home, and it's not.
The builders seem to have little regard for safety, even their own. On site are Building Inspector Angus Mackay and Planning Enforcement Officer Mark Springthorpe from Barnet Council.
I don't think this is what they're actually building.
Not only has the developer not applied for building regulations, they suspected he isn't sticking to his agreed planning permission. The developer has been summoned to the building site.
Mr. Ishmael, good morning.
Angus and Mark make it clear to Mr. Ishmael that he must get his house in order.
They're going to have to alter what they've done anyway to make it comply with my requirements. They've obviously might have to alter it to make it comply with Mark's requirements. If they'd just spoken to us to start with, they'd have been told what the situation was, and we could have actually dealt with it before, without having to resort to this, and the poor lady there would hopefully not have had large holes made in her wall and all that sort of thing.
For Jane and her family, the situation is deeply frustrating.
I have invested a lot of myself. I'm not talking about the money. Me and my kids here. And to be threatened because the council haven't managed to, follow through after the planning permission's given, is very worrying.
But the
it can happen to anyone.
We are following through. Due process does take time. The wheels do grind slowly, but unfortunately they continue to grind. And like I said, this guy, we will try to avoid going to court, but as I said, it's still a possibility. So therefore...
You know what they say, you climb a mountain a step at a time.
That's right. You can be a shoe salesman one week and you can be a building contractor the next week, and there's a big gap in knowledge. I'm not saying they can't build, but there's definitely been lack of supervision here for certain, because nobody's ever been checking on what they've been doing. If we put it in blunt terms, the builders are to building what Lucretia Borgia was to cooking.
Even though the developer has agreed to toe the line, Angus will be keeping a close eye on the blue tarpaulin house from now on. Planning departments aren't just concerned with buildings, they also regulate how land can be used. In Essex, Stansted Airport handles 23 million passengers a year, and that means hundreds of thousands of cars to be parked while their owners are away. With parking at a premium, Planning Enforcement Officer Brian Taplin has been finding that these cars turn up in the most unlikely locations.
I got an email from the parish council this morning that they've heard rumours and asked us to go out and have a look. Because it is a meet and greet service, so they get met at the terminal, hand over their car and their keys, and they don't see their car again until they come back. They're then taken off somewhere. The car owner doesn't know where they're going, and the cars are just parked for however long the people are away on holiday.
Meet and greet parking costs an average of £60 per week, and customers expect their cars are securely parked. This farm is 15 miles by road from the airport.
Well, there we go. I think that kind of says it itself. That's certainly airport parking without a doubt, the way they're all parked. Straight off the road, there's no security whatsoever. You know, the cars are all here to be seen. There's nobody protecting it. You know, and some of the cars, as you can see, are, you know, fairly expensive cars. I certainly wouldn't want to be parking my car and leaving it here. You know, what we'll often see in the car is some documentation on the dashboard. The operators do get a bit cute. They won't leave anything that's obvious. And there's nothing on the dashboards here.
If the farmer wants to permanently change the use of the land from farming, he has to get permission.
It's about 70 altogether in here and at the back and on the next row. What I need to do is really go and knock on the door and see if we can find anybody about and just see what they've got to say, really.
If these are airport cars, 70 cars at £60 a week adds up to as much as £200,000 a year.
I haven't seen the name on there. I think I know who's the operator is of this now. Somebody else that I'm also dealing with at another site.
The name on the mail points to a family connected to another farm nearby. They may not be running the operation, but they are responsible for cars parked on the land.
We'll walk through there and see if we can find somebody. Yeah, I'm a planning enforcement officer and I want to talk to you about airport parking.
Brian questions the farmer about the cars at the other farm and their connection to Stansted Airport. The farmer immediately agrees to move them. If they're still there when Brian returns in a month's time, he will issue an enforcement notice. Failure to comply could mean a hefty fine. In North London, Building Inspector Angus is back at the blue tarpaulin house.
We've reached a point now where the applicant has actually submitted a building regulations application, and that stopped us going to court.
But to maintain building regulations approval, the site has to be regularly inspected, and the developer has failed to notify Angus that the work has restarted.
Gentlemen, I want words with you, please.
Building work has to be continually monitored to check that it's up to scratch. Regulations exist to prevent bad and dangerous practice.
Do you speak English? Huh? Do you speak English?
I don't know.
Well, no, I mean... Right.
Sorry.
Once inside, Angus is not happy with what he finds.
It's all pretty bad. I mean, that's bad. The concrete block underneath that steel beam is not put in properly. If you actually look down here, the drains are actually at this level. The ground level's been reduced to below the level of the drains, which creates, potentially a significant problem.
Not only is the developer not complying with building regulations, he also seems to be constructing more than the two-storey rear extension that he has permission for.
The steel beams, you can see, are set at a level that they're obviously trying to put an extra storey in. If you look at there, that brickwork or blockwork is actually cut out to take joists. One floor level to the steel beam here, second floor level to that area at the top there, and then another level on top of that. If the builders are quite genuine the developer's quite genuine. I'm quite happy to be cooperative. If there isn't a situation like that, then unfortunately we're going to have to get the stick out. Mr Ishmael, it's Angus Mackay from Barnet Council Building Control. I'm actually standing in your site. Would you please contact me immediately to let me know what's going on? Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
As Angus explores the house further, he makes another discovery.
Bedding.
This appears to be an area they have prepared to possibly sleep in. I mean, conditions are diabolical.
To cut costs, the workers are not just building the house, they also seem to be living in it. While not a planning issue, Angus will be notifying the Environmental Health Department. Next door, Ben and Jane are losing their patience with both the developer and the council.
Yeah, people are coming down, but is anything happening? No one's showing us that it is.
I feel disappointed with the council, and I feel that perhaps it's up to us to hassle the council more.
We just feel it like that over us, and we don't even see an end to it. That's what's worse. There's no end. It's just going to go on and on and on.
In Essex, Brian is making a follow-up visit to make sure the airport cars have been moved.
As I said, 70 vehicles parked here the last time we came, so the job is now to have a look and see if we've got any. And as we can see, none at all. You can still see actually the marks on the grass where a lot of cars are parked both sides here. These sort of people are not going to stop running this business, they're only going to move it elsewhere.
The threat of the enforcement notice seems to have worked, but Brian wants to check out another site also connected to the family.
Yeah, this is very much a cat and mouse game. You know, there are only a few operators in the area that are running these sort of businesses, but I know they're not going to pack up. Right, we come up to the other property I want to check on to see whether he's moved his cars here. It is a bona fide business of storage and self-storage. You know, people have got their furniture and other items stored there.
The site has planning permission for general storage, but not for parking airport cars.
Find a way in. Hello?
Within minutes of arriving, a car pulls up.
Lads, are you going into the site? Are you going into the site? Helpful to turn up here with a car turned up just behind me when they did put it to them that they just picked the car up from somebody at the airport. They didn't deny or admit it, but I just think by their manner that's fairly clear that that's a car that's been left by somebody from the airport, and it's kind of ideal to have a bit of evidence right in front of me. I take it this is not your car? It's not your car? No. Is he the owner? If the owner says I can't go in, I do have a power to enter land under the Town and Country Planning Act. I'm hopeful that I can convince the owner to let me have a look around without us resorting to that. So I'll just...
The owner agrees to show Brian around, but he did not want to be filmed.
There are 6 poultry sheds, or were poultry sheds. Having gone into the site, out of the 6, 3 of them are certainly full of cars, and they're full of cars to do with airport parking. You can see right from the doorway all the way back, you can just pick out the light is reflecting on the index plates in there. So that is full of cars. He's got a contract with hotels at the airport, and he moves the cars between the airport and this storage. Now, I would say he's probably got about 150 to 200 cars there at the moment. And they were quite happy to show me inside of the buildings. They think it's within their planning permission. It isn't, but is there such substantial harm that we're going to do anything enforcement-wise? As I said, we'll just discuss that and see where we go with it.
At Braintree's Planning HQ, they decide to issue an enforcement notice, stopping the site from being used for airport parking.
Part of the process of serving notices, of course, is to send a message out that the council is prepared to spend its time and money and effort in combating these sort of unlawful uses. The
owners immediately appeal against the enforcement notice, but lose. They've been given 4 months in which to close the car parks for business. Over 5,000 planning applications are submitted to Barnet Council a year. Rejections happen for many reasons, but they often appear again in a revised form. As a senior planner, Fabien Bernard Godin often gets the tricky applications landing on his desk.
I work in the department that's called Development Control. And that says everything, you know. As planners, we control development. We control how our area changes, how the borough changes.
Today is meeting Armin Hebert, an architect hoping to impress Fabien with a new design for flats above a carpet showroom.
Some architects absolutely hate it when the little planning officer from the council tells them to change anything about it.
It's not about planning officer, architect, it's about to work as a team together, yeah? Because we both want to achieve something, and that's the most important thing.
2 1-bed and 2 3-bed flats.
Correct.
This second application is to build 4 flats above the showroom. Fabien turned the first application down.
I think everybody can see that this will be an improvement. It's not like the developer wants to make some money here. No, it's just to improve the whole situation. When you take a look again, it's just this little blue thing. It looks like something is missing there.
Armin is keen to show Fabien the proposed development from the rear.
It's a little bit...
Yeah, it's a jungle.
That's a little jungle, yeah. Well, it's probably...
I'm not going there.
You're not going there? You're not brave enough to go there? Come on.
Is it wet?
No, don't worry. It's just... they're not biting the plants.
I'm glad I don't have shorts. It's such a tight site.
It's a difficult site, to be honest. The whole shape is very difficult. And I think it's quite... but it will enhance the whole situation when we're doing something new here.
So that's where most of my objections have come from.
Let's get out of the jungle.
Just over the fence lives Angela Brand, who's expecting her first baby in 3 months.
OK, so this is the area where there's currently a carpet warehouse, and the garden that I'm in is sort of a wall created by the back of the warehouse. And this space here is where they're proposing to develop 4 flats. And so this is going to create a sort of huge wall which will block out a lot of sunlight. Adding 2 floors to the existing carpet warehouse will be really imposing and will feel really hemmed in. Also, as you can see, there are 5 main windows here. We're going to be really badly overlooked, I feel. I mean, this summer or spring, if they do go ahead, I'm expecting, so we'll have a small child and I won't be able to come out here. I mean, I wouldn't. Who would go near any scaffolding? You wouldn't. And so that's another thing which wasn't in my plan. I'd like to use my garden, but I don't think I'll be able to.
The developer's family has been in carpets for 7 generations. Owner Richard Myers sees the flats as an investment for his family's future.
I own this place partly with my brother. We both have 2 kids. So 4 flats, 4 kids. So what we plan to do in, well, I suppose you're talking about 10 years or so, is pass them on to our children. For this generation, trying to get it by a place is virtually impossible, and this seems to be the obvious thing to do to help them on their way.
It seems so unfair. It's not in keeping with the area. It's just so frustrating, and you just, you know, feel like tearing your hair out.
If Fabien recommends the application for approval, the only way to stop it will be at a planning committee meeting. At the Blue Tarpaulin House, the situation has reached crisis point.
I consider we've been relatively patient. We've tried to negotiate. We can't do it. Eventually, it's a bit like prodding a sleeping bear. If you keep prodding it hard enough, eventually it will wake up and do you some damage.
Further building work has undermined the scaffolding, and the council have issued a dangerous structure notice. They've called in the incident support team to take it down. It will cost over £8,000 to remove the scaffolding, and Mr. Ishmael, the developer, will be charged for it.
He was warned to take it down by a certain time. He didn't do it, and thank God that the council are now actually doing something about it.
Without the scaffolding, the true magnitude of the conversion is revealed. And it's clear the developer is still trying to put on a flat roof at the rear. something he doesn't have permission for. When he eventually arrives on site, Mr. Ismail doesn't seem at all surprised with what he finds.
Military operation.
I'm afraid so.
And I don't want to be filmed. Is that all right?
Once again, the developer assures Angus that he will comply with building regulations and his agreed planning permission. But only time will tell.
It means that, well, hopefully we'll have a happy ending.
Lovely. So we're finished.
2 days later, and the scaffolding is back up. With all the delays, the developer is very keen to get the project finished. But it's a Saturday, and the builders are not allowed to work past 1 o'clock.
It's actually, what is it? It's something like 5 o'clock. You're not allowed to work. You have to stop working. I'm calling the council now, then. Okay. Okay.
The misery is set to continue. Fabian has reached a decision about the flats above the carpet warehouse in Barnet.
Following a lot of discussions between the architect, all the reasons to refuse the previous application had been addressed, and that the design of the proposals had been changed to fit in more, better with the street scene. We felt that a recommendation for approval was the right recommendation.
With Fabian recommending the scheme for approval, the neighbours have put in an official objection. The application will now be decided at a planning committee, where both sides will have their say.
Hey Rob,
hi David.
How you doing?
Yeah.
You all right?
Good to see you.
Yeah, you.
Angela and David are gathering support in an effort to fight the development.
I'll put the kettle on. Want some tea?
Oh yes, please.
There's about 16 properties that have already put their names to a letter that we've sent. They're really good people here, and people feel passionately about the neighbourhood and where they live.
You can get upset about things, but getting upset doesn't get you anywhere. You've got to have some sort of a reasoned argument against all the points that they put forward, and that's what we're trying to do.
There's so much to learn, there's so much you've got to get your head around, the way to present your arguments, the language you use, and I just feel that the developers are already in that world and they can fight that battle more easily than we can. And certainly our experience is that seemingly Barnet Council is on the side of the developer.
It's the night of the planning committee. Judgment of the application will be made by a small group of elected councillors, not planning professionals.
So much rides on this from our point of view that we really want to win and make a good effort of it.
A little ticker's going bip bip bip, but that's okay.
I'm nervous for him. Yeah, I think it's just about we've only got 3 minutes, and if you're not allowed to overrun, so it's getting the points in those 3 minutes.
Many local residents have come to show their opposition.
The appearance of the building would be totally out of keeping with the nature of the local area. These houses and gardens would be totally dominated by an imposing building that would clearly jar with the lower level scale of the area. We feel it ignores the rights of many existing residents while benefiting just a few. Thanks for listening.
My problem is the height of the proposed development will result in further loss of light, sunlight and privacy. It will reduce my right to the peaceful enjoyment of my property and potential harm to the local amenity. One last thing, I feel that this committee is going to make a decision.
And now it's time for the project architect, Armin.
So, I've heard several things like loss of privacy, inaccurate drawings, which I'd like to check if this is true. I don't think so. When you take a closer look on the adjacent properties, on the left and on the right side of the application side, you've got already overlooking issues there, which I don't understand.
To have a further block jutting up above the existing carpet warehouse be altogether too overpowering from there. Too much overdevelopment. Thank you.
The residents have some support, but to win they need a clear majority.
The recommendation is to approve this application. All those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. That is not approved.
The application has been turned down for a second time.
absolutely delighted and relieved. I was so pleased. And it's so good that we felt that we've been listened to at last.
I think everyone is pleased now that we've got to this stage, and hopefully that will be the end of it.
But Armin is not giving up.
Well, that's life. Come on. But the majority is not always right, yeah? That's the point. But put some people's hands... well, we're coming back. That's what I say. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. Yeah.
And Armin is true to his word. They appeal against the decision and win. Despite all the local opposition, the flats can be built. At the Blue Tarpaulin House, Ben and Jane have called back Planning Enforcement Officer Mark Springthorpe.
The roof is obviously clearly not right. My feeling is he's planning to do a flat roof, and they were told that they can't have that. He's so clearly not sticking to the plans.
Yeah.
And he was told he has to take it down, so he took it down, and now he's built it up again, exactly the same.
Good afternoon. I wonder if someone could come and have a word with me, please.
I don't know.
Well, if you could just get one of these people to come and... It's pretty clear that the developer isn't on site. You can see that the rear elevation should peak and trough the same way that the neighbouring properties do. And we have made more than one request for the work either to be done in accordance with the approved plans or that new plans should be submitted. And as of today, neither of those cases is true.
But when it's challenged again by the planning department, the developer changes the roof back to comply with the agreed planning permission. Two months later, and the conversion is virtually complete. Ben and his mum have had to fight all the way over 7 traumatic months.
All the things they didn't have planning permission, we've attacked them. And the majority of it has been changed. And so I'm glad we've made the fuss we have.
But it has taken almost 50 visits from building inspectors and planning enforcement officers. And there's still an outstanding enforcement notice that the developer is appealing against, as well as no completion certificate. And Mr. Ishmael doesn't seem to have learned his lesson. In South London, he has started on a new project and is already falling foul of building control, all of which comes as no surprise to Ben.
I don't think that the council actually have the power to stop people like this getting away with it. And that's the frustrating thing about this. And, well, that's planning for you.
Next time, a luxury house could be reduced to rubble.
The whole house has to come down, the worst case scenario.
There's drastic action to sort out the plumbing.
Just cut the pipe off.
And a proposed block of flats faces local objection.
It's just going to be monstrous. Absolutely monstrous.
Jonathan Ross tunes in to Richard Curtis's new comedy, The Boat That Rocked, next tonight in film 2009 on BBC One. And then more acclaimed legal drama with Glenn Close. Another chance to see Damages at 11:35.